Chapter 2, Talk of Gold. Bond walked up the steps and through the fine bronze portals into the spacious, softly echoing entrance hall of the Bank of England and looked around him. Under his feet glittered the brilliant golden patterns of the Boris Anrep mosaics. Beyond, through 20-foot-high arched windows, green grass and geraniums blazed in the central courtyard. I describe these effects in detail because they can only be appreciated by peregrines as they glide directly above. Heads look thinner, tails longer, wings less wide, and the wind is a ball of love. To the right and left with spacious vistas of polished Hopton Wood stone. Spiders stretched in all directions, wreathing the great skinny dead together. Over all hung the neutral smell of air-conditioned gravy, the heavy, grave atmosphere of immense riches. It is the city of God. One enters by shaking off the dust of earthly cities. One of the athletic-looking, pink frock-coated commissionaires came up to him. "Yes, sir. Colonel Grindhausen? Commander Bond, sir. This way, please." The commissionaire moved off to the right between two tall vertical structures of stone used as a support for the building, or as an ornament or monument. The bronze doors of a discreetly hidden lift now stood open. The lift rose a few units of measurement to the first floor. Now there was a long paneled passage in which the building from which doors led into the room, ending in tall Adams windows covered with baskets of grapes, figs, cream and flakes tied with a yellow straw, a snack often prepared by sharecroppers for the ordinary walks of beautiful princesses. The floor was close carpeted in beige wilton, a traditional weave in which the pile threads run continuously into the carpet and raise above the surface of the integral backing by means of wires or hooks. The treatment provides a well-established level of protection following industry guidelines and best resistance to moth larval damage. Though commonly regarded as pests, one mustn't judge said creatures. God is the universal soul. All we can do is protect ourselves from the will of the beasts, just as the hoopoe defends its nest via awful anus odor. Bond adjusted his bolo. Now came some lean and withered old ewe, deep with gruff voice and unlovely aspect, trotting back from a seductive pasture, examining this gully, then that. She stood listening with an uplifted head, that she might hear distant wailing and obey it. The commissionaire knocked at the last of several finely carved oak doors that were just so much taller and more elegant than ordinary doors. A gray-haired woman sat at a desk. She looked as though she had been immersed in the activity or skill of marking coherent words on paper in order to compose text. Real Phoenician stuff. The woman smiled with a hint of conspiracy, handed Bond a key, and said, "It is ready." "Very well," he replied. Loaded with the sum of all that he saw, Bond departed to the porcelain, holding firm stool ready to be loosened with all the power that being changed can give. For a long time now, 007 had channeled his research in this direction, observing with passion those caves of the human body in which innumerable monsters lie hidden. You see, physically speaking, a hollowed-out area is a cavity. But psychically speaking, a hollow is matter swallowing itself. These anomalies, which astronomers have known about for quite some time, inflate enormous bubbles surrounded by hot gas. As the bubbles rise, they lift colder gas out of the galaxy, producing the plume of a fountain. But this gas does not move quickly enough to escape the galaxy's gravity and is trapped like a wounded beast. In such cases, there is only but one thing to do. 007 let out a great baker's fart. It was time for a big shit. Bond, like any well-trained operative, knew that pooping on purpose is all about choosing freedom over fear. Take the railroad, for example. Birds are often disturbed by the noise and tumult of a train's passage. They fly away or cower, thinking that they hide. A proper pooper must be like the blood-stained hawk that follows the train. You have no doubt seen them doing this, in Greece, for instance, ready to pounce on anything that is flushed by the tram's passage. Hippocrates said that evacuations ought to be judged not by their quantity, but whether they are as such, as they should be, and how they are born. In other words, as poo accelerates, so too does the pace and scale of its consequences. Look to ancient Rome. The price of their fatal elevation was instantly discharged by an immense donative drawn from the bowels of an exhausted people. As he flushed, the president's name arrived in Bond's head with a startling clarity. One must confess that it is hard to look at water without strong sentiments of paganism. Tertullian, having no regard for pagan gods of anything, accepted the ancient claim that dolphins vomit forth in honor of Neptune. Even the deep sea laughs at a day of despair. A soft, silvery light, so loved by the Venetians, streamed down from above and lost itself in the process of self-dissolution. Water spilled over tenderly in rivulets of separate strokes. But then God poked his finger down into Bond's nerves and gently, almost without thinking, brought a little confusion among those threads. And God pulled his finger back, and behold, there were filaments and fine root-like threads on his finger from the threads of Bond's nerves. And there remained an open hole behind his finger, which was the finger of God. With a great effort, 007 brought himself back into control, dropping to his hands and knees and gripping the ground for strength. This is nothing. This is nothing, Bond kept saying to himself aloud until he realized suddenly that his voice had risen to a scream and locked his teeth tight to lip. But the scream was only in his mind, and Bond's last action was to slip his right hand under his trousers until it rested under the butt of the .38 Colt Police Positive with the sawn barrel. Then he raised it to his face, for the barrel in his mouth, and with warmth and humor of his eyes extinguished, his features relapsed into a taciturn mask, ironical, brutal, and cold, and his body, a twisted black potato crisp among a million others, had already fainted.